What's up, y'all? Welcome to this week's edition of Checkerboard Chat. I'm Ethan Stone. I'm here with Josh Lane, Riley Thomas, and Andrew Peters. We're here to talk about just Tennessee football, Tennessee basketball, Tennessee soccer, a lot of interesting things happening in Tennessee athletics this week. So we're kind of pressed for time. We've had interesting things happen technicality-wise in the past couple weeks, so we're just going to jump right into it. First, we're going to talk about football. Obviously, Tennessee goes on the road to Lexington, beats number 18 Kentucky. Pretty exciting week overall. Josh Heupel finally gets that signature win that, people were talking about, saying you got to beat the Kentuckys, got to beat the Vanderbilts of the world if you're, going to succeed here at Tennessee. Josh, what do you think about just how Tennessee did?
Yeah, obviously the thing that really stands out to me is the time of possession discrepancy, and that's I don't know if that's the biggest story from the game, but as far as Tennessee managing to win despite having the ball a third of the time that Kentucky did and outscoring them, that's really the biggest storyline, and I think that speaks to Heupel, what he's done. Obviously, we knew that kind of pace of play was what he wanted to bring in when he came in. I think this might be a bit of an exception, a bit of an abnormality. I don't think we're normally going to see Tennessee with this few time of possession, with this, that few minutes. But I do think, obviously those quick touchdowns help. First play of the game from scrimmage is a touchdown. I think 3 plays later they have another touchdown. And so plays like that kind of skewed the numbers. But just how efficient the Vols offense was between, Heupel's play calling and Hendon Hooker and even, not really having much of a run game. Just I guess it's mainly on Hooker, with a kind of a career day. But that's probably the biggest thing that stands out to me is just the total efficiency of this offense, that they can score that many points so quickly.
Yeah, it was kind of the battle of two different offenses, I think. You have Tennessee, who literally scored on the first play of the game, and then Kentucky took like 8 minutes to drive and then answer themselves. So, like Josh was talking about, 13 minutes and 52 seconds of offense for the Vols. That is a ridiculous number, and I think I saw on Twitter, and obviously not everything you see on the internet is true, but I think this is that Tennessee won against Kentucky with 13 minutes and 52 seconds of offense, which is the lowest time of possession in a win since 2005.
Wow.
Which is, across college football. Which if any team was going to do it, I feel like Josh Heupel would be the one at the helm of it. And obviously, you had Alontae Taylor's pick 6, and that obviously helps because Kentucky just gets the ball right back. And then I think they went on another long drive, but I'm just kind of rambling here at this point to say Tennessee was kind of set up to win this game. If they got the ball last, if they got in a position where Kentucky wasn't playing that well of defense, which they did not on Saturday night, Tennessee was just going to run away with that one in a shootout.
Yeah, we saw at the beginning, the very first play on how this game would go. A 75-yarder to Devontae Payton on a screen pass, of all things, to go to the house. And then it was just a shootout from here and here on out. And I loved watching that football game. That was one of the more exciting, crazy games I've ever seen in my life. And honestly, if you look at the box score afterwards, Kentucky had over 600 yards of offense. Will Levis looked like a Heisman front runner, and they had 99 plays in 46 minutes of possession. If you just look at it, you would have thought Kentucky would have won. Well, they didn't somehow. And who would have thought also that coaching would have won the game? Heupel, 16 seconds first half field goal. That's a deciding factor, and the pick 6 in my opinion. Those 2 plays were the deciding factor. And also, as UT fans, that 4th and 24, how many times have UT lost after something like that? I go back to the Florida in 2015, was that 4th and 11 with Will Greer. They score on that play, win that ball game. You can just go back and thinking, here we go again. Hold my beer. It's going to happen again. But somehow the defense buckles down. They send pressure, and they get out of there with the win. Don't know how, but they did.
Yeah, it was really a microcosm of the defense as a whole, that 4th and 24.
Yeah.
Josh Heupel even said after the game, Josh and I made the trip up to Lexington, but Josh Heupel said after the game that it was a unique game, I guess.
To say the least.
And to say the least. And like I said earlier, that 4th and 24, giving that up, it kind of felt inevitable. It's it's 4th and extra long, I think, as Josh Heupel put it. But even up there in the press box, I was thinking there's about a 50% chance the Wildcats complete this, and just in my opinion. But that kind of speaks just to the defense as a whole. It was not good. The defense until kind of that last drive,
Yeah.
except for the 4th and 24,
Sure.
they really didn't play very well. Alontae Taylor had his big game.
Mhm.
Tyler Barron had a pretty big game. Caleb
Yeah.
Tremblay had a big game.
Yeah.
But it was more individual performances more than just Tennessee playing as a unit.
Yeah. I think another thing is too, you saw if Tennessee would sit back in coverage, he had all day to throw and find the open receiver. The times that they blitz, like after that 4th and 24, Tim Begg said, "Screw it, I'm seeing the house," and it worked every time. I don't understand why he didn't do that the whole game. Basically, on passing situations, why not send the pressure if it's working? And also, again, the quarterback destroyed Tennessee running the football. Like he didn't have a day Corral did. But I think he ran for like 50 or 60 yards on the ground, probably his best production on the ground all season, and 2 touchdowns. Going against Georgia, that cannot happen. And 3rd downs again was the storyline. They could not get off the field once again. 3 straight weeks against Tennessee defense teams cannot, or they can continue to beat them on 3rd down.
Yeah, so Josh and Riley and I have talked a lot about it. Andrew, what do you think? Does Tennessee just... is their defense kind of faltering right now, or do you think it's more just a game-by-game basis?
I do think it's a game-by-game basis because, I've watched this defense sometimes throughout the year. I'm just thinking, man, they look like they're really good. But then, we get games like Kentucky, like Ole Miss, where, quarterbacks just destroy us, especially on the ground.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, what is it, an adjustment thing? Are we not making the right adjustments? Because, you see there at the end, the defense comes up huge and is really the reason we came out with the win. But I don't know. I don't know if it's a bad defense, if it's we're not making adjustments. But yeah, I think the defense has a lot to work out over the offseason. Georgia will be a good chance to kind of see where we stand after a couple of tough games in a row. So. And then Georgia will just be the icing on the cake and kind of probably expose our defense a little bit and kind of confirm the point we're talking about. Maybe we do just have a bad defense.
Because I'm kind of on that train of thought. Is early in the season this defense was so good. One of the strengths, the run defense was one of the top in the country. Then just team after team, game after game, have just been putting up yards. You mentioned over 600 yards. Passing Will Levis 372 yards, 3 touchdowns. 72 yards on the ground and 2 more touchdowns, for a pocket passer quarterback.
Right.
Again, all the 3rd downs that we mentioned. And I don't know. I think that Tennessee's defense might just be a bad defense. I don't know if it's necessarily play calling or what it is from Banks or whoever you want to say, but they're not getting any pressure on the quarterback. And that was the case, against Alabama. And I thought that was just Alabama's offensive line. But I don't think Kentucky's offensive line is anything special. Maybe they're a bit better than I thought, but they got no pressure on Will Levis for most of the game. And I told Ethan at one point, I know the absence of Latrell Bumpus, who didn't play. I know that's not the deciding factor between Tennessee being a bad and a good defense. So I think it's just this group of players. We've had some good individual performances, but I think Tennessee might just have a bad defense at this point in the season, and that's tough with how with the style of offense that they play, that they move so quick and that it puts so much pressure on the defense to, kind of defend against those sustained drives. But I think they just have a bad defense, and that's something that they're going to have to figure out. Maybe they need to move a little slower on offense just to keep the defense off the field a little bit. I don't know. That's just where I'm at this point in the season.
You actually hit on my point, just as you were ending talking. I'm not necessarily thinking that, I'm not of the thought process anyway, that Tennessee has a bad defense. I think it's more Tennessee's just tired.
Yeah.
They're on the field for 46 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't care who you're playing. You can be playing South Alabama. You're going to be tired with that kind. And so it's kind of that, the title of my latest article was Speed Kills. And it kills the other team, but it also kills their own
defense,
team. If you're moving that fast, sure, you're putting up points. That's good.
Right.
The other team's going to put up points too eventually.
Sure.
And we saw those drives by Kentucky going from longer to shorter as the game wore on, because those guys like Alontae Taylor, Byron Young, it's just gassing them.
Yeah.
It's just gassing them. So I think, kind of to Josh's point, they've got a lot of good individual players on this team.
Yes.
I think they also have a lot of good role players, but those role players aren't quite suited to move that quickly.
Yeah.
And just be on the field so much.
Yeah, I think this is the first year most of these guys are seeing this much game action. Now, granted, yes, this is the 9th ball game, but like you said, if they're out there running 100 plays a game, they're going to get gassed at some point. And also, a couple of quick little points. Well, I thought going to the game, Tim Banks and Levis were at Penn State last year. So I thought Banks would have a little more of a game plan against Levis. That didn't work out. And just going back real quickly to just the defense in general, they put all their effort, I feel like, in the first and second down. And I don't know if they get relaxed on third or something just happens, and then they get the third down, and then it's just a constant cycle. So I'm not sure what's got to get fixed there, but we'll see what happens against Georgia. Now, honestly, in my opinion, get past Georgia, really fix it, South Alabama and Vanderbilt. You really get to figure yourself out those last two games, and then we'll go from there. So
obviously just kind of moving into Georgia real fast before we head into soccer, head into women's basketball. Obviously, Georgia #1 team in the country. There's not really a close second place. There's been a lot of teams fighting for that second, third place spot, but the Bulldogs have always kind of been that constant #1. A killer defense, kind of akin to 2001 Miami. It's just a team that doesn't allow very many points. It's a team that forces turnovers, and they really just punish you for not being perfect on offense. And offense is kind of a different story for the Bulldogs. They're a little better than average, I'd say, on offense, but they don't blow you away, kind of like Georgia teams in the past have. But Josh, just what do you think about what Georgia presents this week?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a challenge. We're talking about one of the greatest defenses maybe in college football. We'll see how things play out over the course of the end of the season. But some numbers: they've allowed 59 points through 9 games. That's an average of 6.5 points per game. That's 2 field goals. 6 points per game. That is insane. They shut out Arkansas. I think it's back in September when they were a top 10 team. They held Auburn to 10 points next week. Right. The most points they've allowed in one game is 13. I think Kentucky did of all teams. Kentucky and South Carolina. But I mean, still, just those numbers alone. That's the kind of defense we're talking about. Obviously, Jordan Davis leads the way. Bit of a Heisman candidate on the defensive line. That doesn't happen too often, but it's going to be a tough defense. But I do think, and I got to be careful of the wording. I don't think it's necessarily an advantage for Tennessee, but I think that it's something to watch. The fact that Georgia has not played an offense with the style that Tennessee runs it with, just the fast pace, play after play after play. That could be a challenge for them. I don't know if that's saying that Tennessee's going to upset Georgia. But it's something to watch. That's just something that Georgia hasn't seen. Can they make the adjustment? I bet they probably do. But that could be a wild card in this one going forward.
Yeah, I think one of the things is too that what's crazy is somehow the highest they've led against is Kentucky. It's 13, which is surprising to me. But also going off of Josh's point, they haven't faced an offense like this. Now, obviously, this defense is basically the 85 Bears. So, I mean, obviously Ethan loves that comment, but he can ramp that up. But, I mean, it could pose some problems, but with as many pros as this defense has, it's not going to be the biggest issue. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, this defense is unreal top to bottom, all first, second, third rounders, literally 1 and probably 2 deep. Tennessee has to score probably 30-plus to even come close to competing with Georgia. Let's just be honest. I mean, they have to.
Do you think that's realistic?
I don't, but that's what has to happen. I don't think that's going to be a realistic issue. And if the defense is playing a suspect against Kentucky, I don't know how it's going to work against Georgia, which is crazy. They're basically 2 deep at quarterback. Stetson Bennett is another runner who's probably going to run all over Tennessee again because the last 3 have. He's okay at passing. Now, can he make mistakes? Of course. That could happen. Can Tennessee force him into doing turnovers like Levis, pick 6? Definitely could happen. Do I see it happening? I don't, because they're just so well coached. They're top to bottom better. Roster is better. Tennessee is, on a high, running high off a big win. In Knoxville, that could help out for maybe a half like Alabama. But at the end of the day, Georgia will just probably overpower them at some point.
I will say the one thing before we move on to soccer, obviously a big win there in the SEC tournament, but one thing before we move on to that, I've said it for a couple weeks now, and I feel like people are going to think I'm crazy when I say this. If there's a team that's going to beat Georgia this year, I think it's going to be Tennessee.
You got a point.
I just think Tennessee. I don't think they're going to.
No.
Let me preface this.
If you do, Georgia, Knox was burning to the ground.
Georgia is a good football team.
Yeah.
I think that are going to beat the Vols. But if there was a team that could do it, Tennessee on paper, they're the ones that could do it because you have a fast offense that could maybe make their defense a little tired. If you get into a shootout with them, Tennessee's probably the best equipped team to win a shootout in the nation, except for maybe Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And defense. If Heupel is smart, Heupel will make defense just irrelevant. Just score as much as you can, make Stetson Bennett, make Georgia's offense score with you, keep up, and know your strengths. And I feel like Heupel has done a pretty good job with that. He knows, he did it just this week with Kentucky. He knows their offense is not built to move quickly at the end of games and win games like that. So if you just score, you're gonna win. It's like being as basic as you can about the game of football. It's like what you do when you're a 5-year-old outside in your backyard. You just score. That's all that matters. Nothing else matters. So I think that'll be interesting to see how Josh Heupel will, I guess, game plan for Georgia, knowing that it's not off the table that they could do it.
Yeah, I saw a tweet. I can't remember who it was from, but it said Georgia is due to pull a Georgia soon. So
it could happen.
That's what I'm riding
it's very
on going
possible.
into Saturday.
I think the matchup this weekend is their D-line versus Tennessee's offensive line.
Yeah,
because obviously their front seven is the best in the country, pros all across the board. Can Tennessee's O-line somehow, I wouldn't say contain, but I don't know. There's probably not a good word to somehow, because you can't stop them. But can they either run around? I don't know. Can they just somehow contain them as best as possible? Because they're going to make plays. It's just going. Jordan Davis is a sculpted human being, 6'6", 350, can run like a gazelle at that big. It's just like, can you somehow contain them a little bit to where you can somehow make big plays? I think Tennessee needs to do a lot of quick passing, no drop backs, because they're going to get their sacks. They're going to make their pressure. You cannot run at them. You got to run around them somehow. Quick passes, quick stuff, screen pass like they did last week. Somehow get them off their feet and cannot get back to the quarterback.
Yeah, Tennessee football, I think, all my years watching Tennessee football, growing up, watching the Vols, I don't think I've had as much confidence in an offense before.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a team.
In a long time.
Like to win a game, but just an offense to move the ball down the field.
Agreed.
Hendon Hooker's going to find Javonte Payton. He's going to find Cedric Tillman. Yeah. And if not, Tyon Evans is going to bulldoze you up the middle.
Yeah.
They just have a good group going right now. Yeah. So I kind of trust that they can put up some points against Georgia.
Yeah, it is worth noting that, to your point, Riley, that the offensive line finally, for the first time in a while, is healthy.
Yes.
We had Cade Mays return back. Cooper Mays is back now. They have the group. You don't have no shade against Dane Davis or whoever else, but you have the guys that you want starting back on the line. And I don't know if that's necessarily going to make a difference against Georgia, but it was a big reason why. I don't know what that sign meant there. You just flashing hand signals. I guess I'm rampant. I don't know. I'll wrap it up, but. The line was back and healthy, and it was a big reason why Hendon Hooker was so efficient against Kentucky. He didn't face much pressure all night, so that is definitely something to watch. I don't know how big of a difference maker it'll be, but
big game for Cade, obviously. Second time playing Georgia. See how that motivational factors into
one
it.
SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week this past week for Kentucky.
Love that guy. Maybe the last few games on Rocky Top, I see him going pro, honestly, but we'll see what happens on Saturday.
Yeah, so sorry, I'm still laughing. The hand sign I was flashing to Josh was a little man kicking a ball, because I think we should talk about soccer now. We've got.
That's a tough call, Ethan.
That was a tough call.
I thought you were like a little running man.
Yeah, if we did this on YouTube, you guys would see just how ridiculous that looked.
That'd be next week.
But exactly.
Gotta get a camera in here now.
But all seriousness, Brian Pinsky and the Tennessee Vols just won the SEC championship, and obviously against Arkansas. I believe it was 3-0. Yeah. Andrew, just walk me through that.
Yeah, so obviously there's not much of a surprise here. The Lady Vols have been just absolutely stellar all season. 2 losses to Arkansas and Vanderbilt. They come in, they just run through Florida. Ole Miss gives them a little bit of challenge, but they get by them. And then obviously a huge shutout against Arkansas, 3-0. I I think what was so great about the team in this tournament, it wasn't just the Jada Thomas show. It wasn't just the Taylor Huff show. Everybody was getting in. Even Ren French had a goal off the back line, the first goal yesterday against Arkansas. So, yeah, I mean, just an absolutely great run to top off an amazing season for them. They probably deserve this more than anybody in the SEC. They're obviously the best team, and it's good to see them win, and especially against Arkansas, the only team that's beat them besides Vanderbilt. But yeah, it was, I mean, just a great run for them. There's a lot of players you can talk about, but if anybody wants to.
Yeah, so I mean, Abby Burdett wins the tournament MVP on defense. I guess you mentioned Jada Thomas. I think she had 5 goals in the series, but for someone like Abby to win it on defense, and especially after a shutout of Arkansas, like just how big was defense for them, the Lady Vols, and their little tournament run here?
Yeah, I mean the defense is huge. Obviously, you give up 2 goals to Florida and Ole Miss. That's always tough, but I mean the defense just looked great. They got the shutout on Sunday. You can't really say enough about this defense, from Ren French, Abby Burdett, Lindsay Romage in goal. They really just, their defense kind of gets overshadowed a little bit because the offense is so great, but I mean really the defense is what has gotten them through this season. It took them I don't know the exact number, but a lot of minutes to allow their first goal, and so that defense just showed up this weekend in the tournament. So yeah, no surprise that she came out with the tournament MVP.
Mm-hmm. I know the selection show is that we're recording this on Monday, so it's this afternoon. Hasn't happened yet, but just what's that kind of outlook look like? I mean, what's the sort of format of the soccer postseason right now, and where's Tennessee kind of stand going into this show?
Yeah, so Tennessee ended the season at, I believe, number 12 in the nation. Obviously, an SEC tournament win is huge for that, especially over Arkansas, who's one of the best teams in the nation right now. So I think this tournament win kind of moves them up into that first or second tier in the nation. They're most likely going to host after an SEC tournament win, which I think is huge. It would be cool for those seniors, a great group of seniors, to be able to come home and play at home one more time. So the tournament selection shows this afternoon. It'll be interesting to see how that SC tournament win impacts their standings going into the tournament.
Is it 64 teams? How many is it?
Yeah, it's 64 if I'm...
64?
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh and I were driving back from Lexington, actually, when we have just tweets on for the Lady Vols. I wasn't able to watch it. I kind of wish I would, because they just have a historic run going right now. I mean, obviously they beat, who all have they beat? I believe it's Florida, Ole Miss, and Arkansas, who, I mean, top SEC teams to get to where they are. And, obviously they have a long road ahead of them. Much more work to be done, but it's just nice having an SEC championship team on campus. Obviously, I believe men's tennis did it last
spring.
So I mean, it's looking up for not just football, not just basketball.
A lot of sports are going up.
It's looking up for a lot of athletics, I guess, on campus. And obviously, you got the volleyball team. They just won yesterday as well. They broke a 3-game skid, I guess is what you can call it. So a lot of stuff heading forward, I guess.
That's actually something that Alonte Taylor brought up today in his press conference, his weekly press conference. He congratulated the soccer team. They're just talking about the culture shift, specifically within the football program, but I guess with Danny White coming in and just the entire, athletic program in general, it seems like every sport's kind of trending up. Exactly. And so, the sports recognize other sports' success. I think that's something cool to see.
Yeah. Sorry about that. It is really cool to note. So I just wanted to jump in before you get your point in. It is really cool to note just how other coaches really like Josh said, how they really seem to care about how other coaches on campus are doing. Rick Barnes, in his media day just a little bit ago, probably a week or two ago, he went out of his way to name everybody. Like volleyball, Everack and Watt, Brian Pinsky with soccer, just Bryn Webb with golf, all sorts of stuff. He was just he was like, they're doing a great job over there. They're doing a great job at softball. They're doing a great job over there, and that just speaks to how big the SEC and Tennessee is becoming. Really, they're just everywhere you look. There's success at Tennessee.
Yeah. Just kind of nail on that point of teams supporting teams. Pretty much every soccer game that I went to, I I would see like a basketball player there or fellow athletes. Santiago Vescovi was, I think, at probably most of the soccer games. So, I mean, these players are going out and supporting each other, which I think is pretty awesome to see. So,
I think it's just nice to see unity on campus again. Because like the previous regime, they've only cared about football and maybe basketball, but now you've got Danny White in caring about, like you said, soccer, volleyball, basketball, football, tennis. I mean, everything, everybody, UT sports right now is at a premium. Like football's on the rise. We just mentioned soccer just won. Baseball went to the World Series since first time since 2005. Softball competes year in, year out, hosts a regional, super regional. I mean, sports right now on campus are alive and well. It's exciting to be on campus.
Yeah, so I mean, just kind of as a segue for that, another one that's we haven't really talked about too much that's on the up and up, Kelly Harper and the women's basketball team.
We'll blame that on the technologies because we talked about
We
it a
did.
lot.
Yes,
Man,
we
it's so
did.
disappointing.
And the episode that will never air.
Yeah,
Again.
The mic.
it's definitely fair to blame technology every once in a while.
Sorry.
You know, women's basketball, they in exhibition beat Georgia College. I can't remember what the exact score was,
108.
because it was a whipping.
Yeah. 64. They won by 64.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, Kelly Harper beat, I believe it was her brother, good old sibling rivals. She didn't really let up, though.
That's going to
No.
be tough on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
That's got to be tough
That's
on
gotta be
Thanksgiving.
fantastic.
But guys, just walk me through where Tennessee's outlook
Yeah.
is going, maybe a quick Georgia College recap, just whatever you can.
yeah, just to recap Georgia College, like you said, it was a whipping.
Simple.
It's a good word.
Yeah.
Good
It's a
simple
whipping.
word.
Obviously, it's Georgia College. It's not a Power 5 program, but it really was just an all-around great win. It's similar to Tennessee's win over the men's win over Lenore Ryan. I mean, they just looked absolutely great. They had 5 players in double figures. A lot of newcomers showing out. We can talk about this a little bit more in a minute, but Alexis Dye, her first game at Tennessee, just looked phenomenal. All the freshmen played. Every single player scored. Every single player that suited up scored, which is really cool to see. They just looked like they were playing well together already. And yeah, I mentioned this in last week's episode that didn't get aired, but late in the game, they're up 50 or 60 points, but they're still diving for loose balls. They're still running down the court, just trying to stop plays. And I think that just kind of says a lot about the culture. There's definitely a winning culture here, and I'm sure Kelly Harper understands what it means to. I'm not sure. I know she understands what it means to be a Lady Vol and kind of the culture that comes with that. So, yeah, a lot of positives to take away from that game.
Yeah, I look at the numbers here. Of course, Ray Burrell leads with 18 points. Kind of figured that would happen. Jordan Horston had a nice game. But you mentioned Alexis Dye, newcomer, first game in Tennessee, scores 12. Kean Green coming off of an injury. She has 11. I think those two really stick out to me. So just what did you see from them in terms of what they can bring to the team this year in terms of depth?
I mean, both of those they'll just add depth in the front the front court. Because obviously the backcourt with Ron Davis being gone, but Horston, Ray Burrell will hold that position down. But to me, one of the big keys for Tennessee this year, like you said, Alexis Dye, Tamari Key, Con Green, just holding down that front court. You could tell their size was a big factor in Georgia College. Obviously, when you play a better opponent, it'll be a much even more matchup. But you could tell they had 64 rebounds on Wednesday.
Oh my God!
I think like 30 of it was on offensive, and then 34 was on defensive. So that was a huge mismatch. I think Tamari had maybe 5 blocks as well. So they overpowered Georgia College.
Y'all can't see my face right now, but I am shocked. I did not know 64 was the number.
A lot of simple enough, a lot of rebounds.
Wow.
So if they can ride that out the rest of the season, the depth of Tennessee, the women's, is a big factor. They are very deep. I think they, like you said, they played all 13, 14 players. So that, to me, is a big key this season. Seeing all the front court out there, all the freshmen, just seeing all the newcomers, and just back to normalcy in women's basketball, and basketball in general. Won by 64. Great start for the women, honestly.
Yeah. I know last year their success in the paint was a big part of that. And we mentioned the rebounds, but points in the paint. Obviously, they had a huge size advantage over Georgia College. But do you think going forward they're still well-equipped to have that same dominance in the paint between Kean Green and Tamari Key and whoever else you want to throw in there?
Yeah, I mean they don't have maybe as much size as you want from an SEC team, but they've got a few players over 6'4", 6'5". Tamari Key is obviously just a beast in the paint.
Yeah.
She's long. She'll block pretty much anybody's shot. But I think, and the stat sheet don't show this, but watching the game on last Wednesday, I mean, the smaller players, Alexis Dye, Ray Burrell, like these players that are 6 feet, a little under 6 feet, a little over 6 feet. They're getting the paint too, and they're the ones that are grabbing boards as well. I kind of compare him to Grant Williams. Obviously, he was pretty undersized in his position. Instead of if a taller player is backing him down, instead of trying to go up and block the shot, he'll go low. And I kind of noticed that a lot with some of these players. If they're being backed down in the paint, and they weren't undersized on Wednesday. They're a lot bigger than the other team, but they have the ability to kind of like find these ways to get the basketball, even if they're not, even if it's a mismatch on the size.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of like, I guess basketball IQ is going to be a huge factor in that. So yeah, I don't think size will be too much of an issue, but I do think that obviously you're not going to have that many boards against an SEC team. But
you mentioned points in the paint, so they scored 108. Their points in the paint, they scored 78 points in the paint of the 108. So I mean that also just goes to the size difference, and also the defense just clamped Georgia College. Obviously, they scored 44 points. I think they shot 25% or below, forced 25 turnovers. So, I mean, it was just an all-out amazing showing from each individual on tennis. Like you said, each ball scored. I saw each scored at least 4 and had 1 rebound apiece. So, just an all-out overall great showing. Obviously, exhibition game. I wouldn't say the first game's the first true test, but Power 5 opponent in Southern Illinois. The first true test with them will come Friday in Orlando against Central Florida. Central Florida is not ranked, but on the road, Orlando, hostile environment. Fans will be there more than likely. Go in Florida 2 days after the first home opener. So we'll really see how well they stack up. And then on Monday, they got USF, who's a top 25 ranked team. So out the gate, they've got tough opponents. So we'll see if that size is a factor, if they play well on defense. Also, one thing to look at, they didn't really shoot that well from the free throw line, shot below 50%.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that needs some potential work. They can work on that easy, shoot free throws every day in practice. But in the future, against a better team, you miss those easy ones. That can turn out to bite them a little bit. So get that over a little bit now, and then get better closer to the season.
Yeah, and that was one of the main points that Kelly Harper talked about in the post-game presser. They've got to clean up the free throws. Sure. I mean, you can't shoot like that when you get into postseason SEC play, and I think they will clean that up. It's their first game out of scrimmage, so I think with the further they get on in the season, the more they'll clean that up. Another point she emphasized, which is, it's funny looking at the stat sheet, you wouldn't think that this is something that she would have emphasized, but she talked about scoring in the paint more. Which,
how can you get more than that?
They did a great job scoring in the paint, but I think she wants to emphasize kind of running the offense, not through Tamari Key, but getting Tamari Key more involved in the offense, and get her posting up, get running plays for her down low. So I'll be interested to see how they kind of make that adjustment going into this next week.
Yeah. So next game, obviously, it'll be Wednesday, 7 p.m. Southern Illinois. That'll be their first official game of the season. Like you said, it shouldn't be a necessarily challenging opponent, but just another game to kind of get the kinks out, to iron everything out, smooth it out before you face some tougher opponents going forward.
It's exciting times, honestly. I mean, like you said, first game, Southern Illinois, Wednesday night. I do believe you'll see more of the same thing with domination down low. Like you said, Tamari Key. I think one of the key things with her being 6'6", towering over everybody, at least she can touch the ball every possession. Like either touching the block, have defenders come down on her, just leaves the wide open looks. So I think that's a big thing. And like you said, Ray Burrell scored 18, 7 and 9, a very efficient shooting basketball. That impressed me the most, just on how efficient she was able just to score. Only missed 2 shots. I mean, they didn't attempt too many threes. I think 7 of 17, something like that. So still efficient scoring overall wise. So just an overall great night. Obviously, you really can't take too much, but just something to build upon. Like, hey, we can do this and do that against everybody. Just something you can work on in practice and just build up for Southern Illinois, UCF. And so it'll just be exciting just to see how they continue off the momentum going into this week and into the regular season. So
So quick kind of recap on women's basketball. Obviously, they have a bright future ahead of them.
Of course,
moving forward, they have a pretty tough non-conference schedule. I know before obviously heading into the South Carolinas, the SEC, giants, I guess. Another team that has a really tough non-conference schedule, the men's basketball team. Obviously, they have their first game
You need to go?
I'm good. I've
Okay.
got a few minutes to try upstairs.
We can. So obviously the men's basketball team, they have their first game tomorrow. It is Monday today that we're recording. It'll be Tuesday at 7 p.m. against UT Martin. Obviously Rick Barnes has his team kind of moving in the right direction right now. They've got, Kennedy Chandler, 5-star freshman, 5-star power forward, and Brandon Huntley Hatfield. A lot of potential on that team. Just Josh, I'll start with you. What do you think about this matchup tomorrow? Who do you think we should be watching out for, and how do you think the Bulls will fare?
Yeah, I guess I'll just take the boring answer. I'll say I'm watching Kennedy Chandler again. He looked really good in exhibition against Lenore Ryan, and I guess the competition will be a little hard against UT Martin. I don't think it's going to be anything necessarily crazy until we get to the rest of the non-conference. But it's just another game for him. I'm interested to see how he does improving wise. I think, he obviously was scoring well. He had the rebounds and assists and everything. But I think just another game in the offense, just kind of learning Rick Barnes and his teammates and everything else. I'm just watching for him and for growth, just to see how he improves in these non-conference games. See whether he struggles, just out making the jump from high school to college. Just plain and simple, just watching Kenny Chandler and see what he can do this Saturday, or not Saturday.
Yes,
it's not football.
Not football
season. Tuesday. Yeah. Man, my days are off.
That's all right.
Yeah, but I'll give the 10-second recap, I guess, of what we went over last week. Obviously, that episode didn't air, but you got big guys like Kennedy Chandler, like Brandon Huntley Hatfield, like we've talked about earlier. But there's just so many players on this team that can contribute. That obviously John Fulkerson is coming back. Most Vols fans will probably know that guy's name. I'd say. You got Justin Powell Justin Powell that transferred from Auburn. He's looking good, great shooter. Can create his own shot in his own regard. Victor Bailey, Vescovi coming back. Obviously, both of them are kind of hot from three-point land. We'll see how that plays out this year for Tennessee basketball. But let's talk just a little bit about UT Martin. It's kind of hard because, most teams on the first game of the year, you can go back to last season, see how they played. You can get a pretty good idea, I guess, of, what the competition is going to be. This year you can't do that because UT Martin does not return a single starter or player from their 2020
Never heard
roster.
of that before in my
life.
life.
I have never heard that in my entire life.
I don't think it's ever happened before.
I'm not sure it has. I looked it up just while they were talking women's basketball and soccer a little bit. I looked it up just to make sure that stat was correct because I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And it is 100% correct. And the thing that is crazy about that is most of them weren't even seniors. Let me read it off here. Most of them were juniors, it seems. You got Cameron Holden was their leading scorer. Anthony Thomas, another leading scorer. He was actually a freshman. He transferred. I don't know where to because there's just so many of them. It's hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
But I guess I'll make a long story short here. We don't know anything about this team, and that most likely spells that they're not going to be a very good team.
I would think so as well.
So,
I think sportsbooks got a favorite Tennessee as 35, 30, 36, something astronomical.
See, and something I love about college basketball is you just never know.
You don't.
UT Martin, this would be perfect for UT Martin to come and compete in this game just because it's a bunch of nobodies.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to the UT Martin players. I just don't know who you are. I cannot find.
There's a bunch of UT Martin people who listen to this. They're going to come here and just crap on all over you.
I've got one current UT Martin player name, transfer from North Florida, Josh Endicott, averaged 8.7 points and 6.2 rebounds last year in North Florida.
All right.
So, player to watch.
Watch out
for
Josh Endicott. And that was actually that was their best, not returner, but their best transfer. Those were the best numbers. 8.7 and 6.2.
I will say this much. They have some fun names on this team. KK Curry from Cleveland, Tennessee.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to seeing how he can play. He's a forward, 6'6", 205 sophomore. But the thing that's crazy about this, too, is all the incoming guys, it seems most of them are transfers.
Interesting.
About half of them. I think I'm reading that about 6.
It's 9 transfers and 5 true freshmen.
That's
to break down.
Wow. That is just incredible.
I think with these types of programs a lot, you just get these like transfers from maybe junior colleges, maybe higher programs, and they're moving to UT Martin to get a little bit more playing time. But it's still surprising. But I think that's kind of why you see that. You just got players leaving and coming in just every other season, you know.
Yeah, and what better way for them to start their Division I careers than against the number 13?
I mean, we've talked a lot about Tennessee building chemistry, and obviously it helps a lot this year with not all the COVID protocols that they had last year, but I can only imagine you've assembled a completely new team. I mean, you have to start on ground zero and build chemistry. I mean, I don't know if this is Martin's first game, if they've had an exhibition or what, but just from a simple chemistry standpoint, like how is that going to translate into a game?
I just found out something else absolutely incredible. Tennessee Martin's coach, Ryan Ritter is his name. It's his first year too, and nobody knows what's happening at this school. They all just showed up and were like, "Hey, y'all, want to play some basketball?" Seriously. By the way, we've got.
I think it
Tennessee
started as a pickup game.
I think it might have.
I mean, they were playing in the rec center, started grabbing guys.
They went to like Rucker Park or somewhere and just grabbed some people at this point.
I mean, we're just. I mean, I don't want to just have a 30-minute segment on us clowning these guys. So I mean, I guess we can kind of talk about last season, even though it won't really help. Tennessee Martin only won 8 games last season. I think in the season before that, they went 9-20. I'm not even sure how long it's been since Tennessee Martin has had a winning team, and obviously that's what you're going to see from these OVC schools, from the Ohio Valley Conference schools. It's a game that Tennessee pays them to come to just learn how their system works, learn how Tennessee's system works, and ease into the tougher competition. You got East Tennessee State coming up, I believe, Sunday, and then you got Villanova after that. So obviously, probably enough talking about Tennessee Martin because we don't really know anything about them. But just Tennessee, how do you think they will address this game?
I think it's just another tune-up. Obviously, before Villanova, you said ETSU on Sunday. I think it's just more things you can just work on. Obviously, against Lenore Ryan, you started out a little slow on defense. Obviously, you won by, 58, 56, something crazy still. So, obviously, in this presser, Rick Barnes wasn't too happy with how his defense played. Still room for improvement, and that's what these games are for, ultimately. I mean, yes, you obviously want to come out there and win and do all that, but it's still a game to learn. You got a lot of young players on this team still. Still some veterans, but ultimately, this team is taken over by newcomers. So this game and a couple other future ones are just to get these guys more acclimated, used to the style of play, the quick pace of basketball, and that's what tomorrow will be for. You will see Tennessee more likely win by 40, whatever it might be. Hopefully, to goodness they do. Just a strong showing from each individual. Kenny Chandler again, Huntley Hatfield, Sakai Ziegler. Hopefully, Folke is back soon. That's another thing too for the guys like Jonas Adu and Folke who had been playing lately because of injuries and sickness. Hopefully, I'm not sure. Are they back tomorrow? Do we know yet?
I haven't heard yet.
Okay. I believe Fulkerson is not.
Not okay. I didn't think so.
He was questionable a while ago, and if I'm Rick Barnes, which obviously I'm not Rick Barnes, I would not be playing.
I agree. I was just curious. I just didn't know if they were going to be back, but as soon as later they are. You need them back for Villanova, obviously, so get them out there hopefully quicker to get them more, in basketball shape.
Yeah. So I think it would be a sin not to touch on this. Tennessee broke their record, I believe, for 3-pointers.
It would have been. I don't think it counts.
Yeah, obviously, it's an exhibition game, but they would have broken their record for most 3-point attempts in a game since, 2009, something like that, something crazy like that. Obviously not something that you usually see from a Rick Barnes team. It's going to be interesting to see if they actually do that in the real deal, against UT Martin. I guess my question would be to you guys, just do you think Tennessee will keep going on that, and do you think that has some wheels to it? Do you think they can do it?
Yeah.
I mean, they'll definitely shoot more threes than we're used to this season. It sounds like that's something that Rick Barnes has emphasized all off season and early now in the fall, is that when they get open shots, take them. When you're passing the ball around, you have an open shot and you pass it away, or you try to set something else. Sometimes it works, but a lot of times you just miss an open look. And so that's something that they've been focusing on, is if they get the looks even from deep, just to go ahead and take them. They've got some good shooters now between Justin Powell and Victor Bailey and whoever else you want to throw in there, but when they get the looks, I think they're going to take them this year. Now, obviously, the 46 attempts that they got, again, a bit skewed. Lenore Ryan, an SEC defense isn't probably going to let have that many looks, but I think that they might be a 3-point shooting team this year just because of this philosophy that we've got good, accurate sharpshooters that can hit from deep. If we get a look, we'll take it.
Yes, I'm sorry. Everyone acted like they wanted to talk, and I think that makes sense because there's just so much to talk about this Tennessee basketball team. The thing I want to bring up is, do you think Rick Barnes did this because, I don't know. His thing has always been putting experience over talent, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a weird way to put it, but he's always favored putting those guys that he knows will work well in his system out on the court and, running his offense. Do you think just having those guys like Vescovi have another year, like Josiah James have another year, Victor Bailey have another year in his offense, do you think he just has more confidence in their ability to shoot threes and that's why they're doing it, or do you think there's some other outside factor?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I think, obviously you've got probably your best shooting roster and probably that Rick Barnes has had at Tennessee, if I had to guess. So I think that's a huge part of it. I think he's got more confidence in those returners, like you said, like Victor Bailey, Vescovi, Josiah Jordan James. So I think that plays a lot into it. But I think it almost looked like on last Saturday that I think in the past, if you take a bad shot, like if you take a shot 5 feet behind the line and you miss it, you're getting pulled, like you're coming out of the game. I think maybe he's moving away from that.
That is something, I forget who said it. It might have been...
I believe it was...
Powell?
Justin Powell? Justin Powell,
yeah,
which is weird because he hasn't played in his system too long. But
anyways, to Andrew's point, he said, normally Rick Barnes will pull you, but if you made a bad shot, if you make up for it on defense, then you're fine. So I guess maybe a bit of philosophy change. I'm sure it won't be like that all season. He's not going to put up with bad shots, but just early on at least.
Yeah, and I'll jump in before someone makes their point. Also, on KenPom right now, Tennessee is ranked the number 6 defense in the country. Obviously, they haven't played yet, so it's really I don't know how they get these numbers, but KenPom is usually a pretty reputable source when it comes to this stuff. So seeing that, and then also seeing just the high volume of threes that they took in that exhibition game, is it possible to have both?
Yeah, I think with this team it definitely is. Not to bring NBA basketball into college basketball, but the Golden State Warriors, obviously one of the best shooting teams in the NBA, are also the number 1 defense in the NBA right now. So I think that you definitely can have both of those things, especially when you've got guys like Kendi Chandler that are really great shooters, but also freak athletes that can keep up with just about anybody. I think that makes it a lot easier. Obviously, we're not going to see Fulkerson pulling from 3. We're not going to see Euros pulling from 3. So I think we don't have those shooting big men like a lot of these other really good defensive and also really good 3-point shooting teams have. But I don't see why we can't have both.
Yeah, that's always been something in college basketball that's been hard to do. There's kind of the 4 major factors of 3-point shooting, regular shooting, boards, and defense. And if you can have all of those, you're going to be a pretty good team. Just kind of off the top of my head, BYU, best shooting team in the country last year. From 3, I believe they were 50%, something stupid like that, which is just an absurd number.
Yeah.
But they hit their threes. Their problem was they couldn't get back in transition and play defense. They couldn't get the boards. They'd shoot the 3 and then they'd run back because they don't have anybody that can go get the basketball and go put it back up. Tennessee does. They have Brandon Huntley-Hatfield. They have Olivier Conwa, who has taken a step and, by the way, was shooting threes in the exhibition game against Lenore Ryan. So, I hate to say it'll be interesting to see how they're going to move forward in that, but there's just a lot of things, I guess, Tennessee basketball could be doing that could really put them in the upper echelon of college basketball this season.
I think Rick Barnes is finally figuring out the game of basketball is moving more to the perimeter side of it, meaning you got to space the floor and you got to be able to shoot. Because his last year with Grant and Admiral, those guys were dominant down low. So, yes, we, probably average at 3-point, but you could rely on Grant and Admiral to get theirs. So you didn't need to worry about having shooters around them. These last, 2-3 years, you need the shooters. Because once you don't have those guys who can just go and get a bucket, you need to space the floor, be able to have guys who can shoot, like a Powell, like a Chandler, Victor Bailey, who's getting better, and Vescovi. He's realized that. Obviously, Tennessee does have down low players in Folke, Huntley-Hatfield, those guys. But they're not at the level of Grant and Admiral. So what he's done is I think he's got more perimeter-centric, got guys who can shoot, space the floor, so you can drive, kick, find the open look. And like we saw on Saturday, a couple Saturdays ago, shooting means a lot. So, obviously volume shooting, he can tell. Threes, kind of win games now. If you can't shoot the 3, you're not going to win basketball games anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Basketball, kind of like all sports right now, football especially kind of moving to an air raid offensive spread style. Basketball right now, the Golden State Warriors kind of started it and it trickled down.
Yep.
you shoot threes, and if you make them, you win the game.
Of course.
If you make them at a high level, you're going to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
The only team I can think of in recent history that's kind of disproved that, I guess, is the Utah Jazz last year.
Yeah.
I mean, they were shooting at a high level. They were the best three-point shooting team in the NBA last year, and they started not hitting them in the playoffs, and it came back to bite them. Moving back to college basketball, I don't want to keep talking about BYU, so we'll talk about Baylor. Best three-point shooting team in the country last year, apart from BYU.
Of course.
And they won the
Won the
Dagon.
Natty. Yeah.
So Tennessee, I guess, Rick Barnes, like you said, they're kind of starting to get with the times a little bit because, you know, Barnes has always been the guy that's like, get to your place and hit your shot.
Yep.
Whether it's a mid-range, whether it's a layup, whatever. But now, that's not enough. I mean, you got to hit the three ball. You got to be able to play with the big boys like that. Like Gonzaga, who is also a good three-point shooting team. Like Michigan, who is, like I said earlier, a good three-point shooting team.
Yep.
You've got all these guys that are just so good at that. No one succeeds anymore not hitting the three. And I think Tennessee was like 32% last year.
Not that good. Yeah.
Not great.
Yeah.
Not at all. I mean, you got to be sitting in the 35, 36 range to really be elite in today's game.
If you talk about other three-point shooting teams, Alabama in your league last season, I mean, that's all they did was shoot threes. That 1 through 5 all could shoot. They just spaced the floor, did not care. They're like, John Petty's pulling with a guy in his face 30 feet out. I don't care. I'm going to shoot this ball. I don't care.
I will say Alabama is like the Tennessee football of college basketball right now. They shoot with no
matter
regard
what.
for human.
They don't care. Yeah.
They cross half court and they pull up.
It
They
don't matter.
have about 10 seconds and they pull up and they shoot. And the thing that was stupid about it is they made it most of the
Exactly.
time.
That's the point.
And so it just becomes impossible to play a team like that because obviously 3 points is more than 2 points.
Yeah.
And also it compounds upon itself because if you hit a 3, it doesn't matter if you answer it, they're going to hit the next 3 and they're up 4 all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to keep up. I've beat that dead horse several times in the past 5 minutes, but you have to be able to keep up. And Rick Barnes is finally kind of figuring that out, like, hey, I can't keep, like, I got to adapt too. You know, Rick Barnes, great coach. He's been to the Final Four with Texas. He's, you know, done good things at Clemson. He's done good things at Tennessee. But he's kind of realizing, hey, I can get better. My team can get better. And you know, obviously they have.
Yeah. So.
You want to wrap us up? You want me to wrap us up?
Go ahead.
All right. Well, good ending there. So Tennessee UT Martin. That's Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Thompson Boling Arena. Again, there's a lot of sports going on right now. We'll have full coverage of all of it at utdailybeacon.com. But I guess that's it for today. Thanks for listening. Thank you all for being on. Enjoyed it.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully the audio is good. If you're
Yes.
hearing this, that means it is.
Yeah.
So we obviously figured out
Hopefully
that
it is.
problem. But
One final thing, I'm about to go get my cookies from Moonshine.
Ooh.
Cookies, thanks to Lante Taylor. So
Alante.
thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
I do want to jump in really fast. Alante Taylor's dance. If I attempted that, I would tear a tendon.
Very true.
So,
very true. We'll
but
leave
anyway.
that to him. Leave that to him. But thank you for the cookies, sir.
And
I
on that
appreciate
note, thank you guys for
There you go.
listening. And we'll see you later.
it. Yep.
see you.
See you next week.